Hello and welcome to another card video here on my YouTube channel or on my website. I am excited to be here with you today for a brand new feature that I have started. This is my Hello Monthly. So hello November. I'm actually so happy November is here. And what I'm showing you right now, really quick before we jump into the card, is my ordering special for the month, which are these beautiful winter jewels. I actually haven't used these yet. I got them at the beginning of the catalog when it was launched, and I haven't used them yet. So I think because the weather is now cold and rainy and wintry where I am, I think this will be a great month for these. So when you order from me, when you spend $40 this month with me, you will get a set of those gems, and then you will get 3 different PDFs. This is just an example of my Simply Stampers PDF, and that features 12 projects. I have another one that features 10 projects. And then I have a third one for you. And then this right here is my Hello Monthly. I have some new card sketches and color combos that I'm going to be sharing with you. I'm actually going to be doing one of these card sketches today with you. And then I have some memory keeping sketches. And in the future, I will have some memory keeping ideas there. And then the very last page is my Blessed to Craft class for the month. And then also my favorite product picks for the month. So that is my new Hello Monthly. You can access that and download it and check it out if you want. So now I'm going to dive into this card that I really messed up. I really just messed this totally up. And I thought I would leave in my mistakes and just show you how I pivoted and fixed the problem. So the first thing that happens is I am going to use this Cajun Craze cardstock. I pull it out of my scraps, but I realize after I fold it that it is not 4 1/4. It is 4 inches. And it looked off. It didn't look quite right. And so I grabbed a ruler and measured it and realized it was off. And then what happened is I grabbed another piece of Cajun Craze and it was still only 4 inches. So I scrapped that color and I just went with a basic gray. I didn't want to cut into any of my cardstock, and I'm trying to use more of my scraps up. And I recently organized all my scraps by colors, and so I am trying to use those up. So I grabbed a basic gray piece of cardstock, and then I'm using this pattern paper. I've used this pattern paper and this color combo a ton. It is the pumpkin pie color, and then the mint macaroon color. So I'm going to use both of those. And then the stamp set that I'm using is called Forever Friendship. And I had wanted to use the sweater on here, and you're gonna see that I start to use that, and then that's where I really messed it up. So the sketch does not have measurements on it, but it does show you layers. And so the sketch is meant to be this jumping off spot for you if you are struggling with card designs, or you have a little bit of time to be creative but you don't really know what to do. That happens to me sometimes, and I find that using a sketch is really the best thing to do. It's the best place to start. And I don't always follow the sketch exactly. Sometimes I just end up feeling really creative and I get a creative idea and I go with it. Other times I follow the sketch exactly. So in this case, I cut down some of the mint macaroon design, and I first cut it at 1.5 inches, and then that was a little too big. So what I will do is readjust that and cut it at, I think I ended up cutting it at 1.25 inches. And then that tends to fit a little bit better. And then instead of using a circle, what I am using is a square. And then I wanted to use this sweater. I had this idea in my head that I would color the sweater and pop it up and put a sentiment right underneath it. And originally I thought that this sweater was, I didn't think that there was any design on the inside of the sweater. So when I got it out, I was like, oh, that's not exactly what I thought it was, but I'm sure it'll still work. you'll see that it doesn't end up working, and I make a huge mistake after I've colored all of it and like I've done everything, and I'm like, I'm just gonna make it work and it looks good and I like it. I just totally screw it up. So I show you how I fixed it. So what I did here is you saw that I trimmed down that sticker, and I do that so that my stamps come off my clear block. These stickers that Stampin' Up has on there are super, super strong. And if you just stick the sticker on the back of your stamp, what happens is it comes very difficult to peel them off the clear block. So I find if I just trim around the image a little bit, then they will come off a little bit better. So here I am, I'm gonna color this sweater. At this point, I'm like, okay, I can still make it work for what I wanted to do. And I start out with the smoky slate color, and then I'm gonna do the light color first, and then I'm gonna bring in the dark color, and then I'll bring in the light color and blend it out again. So essentially, I'm doing 3 steps. I'm adding the light, and you can see I'm not very careful with that first layer. I just want to get the color down. I want to get the paper saturated with the ink so that everything starts to move around a little bit better. And I'm not terribly worried about going outside the lines on the outside of the image because I know I'm going to fussy cut it out. So I put down that light color. It provides the moistness from that pen gets on your paper, and then that allows the rest of your ink to move around. So then where I think that there's going to be some shadows, I come in with the dark. And at this point, I'm really not loving it. So at this point, I'm like, I really don't like that there is those like dots on the sweater, like that provide a little bit of a design. I'm wishing that the sweater was just blank, but I'm still thinking like, okay, it'll be fine. Once I get it cut out, it's going to look a little bit different and it'll be okay. And once I get the extra color in there, it'll be fine. And I really did love the way that the smoky slate was blending. It was a color that was blending really well. Later, when you see me use the mint macaroon, on a different image, you'll see that it doesn't blend as well. And that was kind of a bummer, but it does work. It just, you can tell when your pens, which colors blend well and which colors just are a little bit more fussy. So here I'm adding the orange, and you can see when I touch the tip of that pen to the paper, that paper just soaks it in really well. So I also, when I was doing these, I wasn't too worried about going outside the lines because you can see I'm going right over that darker color, and that is blending it out a little bit as well. Um, so then I'll just finish filling this in. I wanted to add a little bit of mint macaroon, so I'll start to do that. I don't know that the color combo for the sweater worked really well. Here I just used um, my dark mint macaroon. I wasn't even going to try to blend out those smaller pieces, but I'm starting to go quicker because I'm feeling like this isn't really working. Like I'm not really loving the way that the ink is working. So then right here, I had a gel pen and I left all of this in. Like normally I edit this out, but this is the real process I went through. So I wanted to leave it in and just share that just because you see a video where a card is made perfectly in 10 minutes, it does not mean that that is what really happened. Here in the YouTube world, we have a thing called the edit button, and oftentimes we edit things out and then we just talk through the tutorial because we want to help people make cards or make projects, right? But sometimes it's nice to see that there is a process in itself. And what I was doing is I had that black gel pen, and it's like a jelly roll pen, so it's glossy. And I wanted to do it with the buttons, but I guess mine dried up. So I was trying to get it to work by heating up by writing really quickly with it, scribbling back and forth. I was heating up the tip of that pen to see if the ink would flow, and it wouldn't. So I ended up throwing it away. It just dried out. And then what I did is just use a black pen to fill in the buttons. So here is where things get a little bit tricky. So I used my X-Acto knife and I cut out that little thin piece. And you can see it's not perfect. The fussy cutting was not perfect, but I wasn't worried because I was going to do this trick and it was going to be so cool, right? I was going to use this black writer marker, and I've done this before. I do it a lot of times when I fussy cut things. And you just run that black marker right along the edge. Now, the thing I should have done is I should have used a gray marker. The black was too bold, really, for what my image was. And so what that does is it hides all the white and then it makes it look like you just cut it perfectly. But did you see what happened? I totally slipped and I made that huge line. So I sat there for a minute thinking, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to color that whole thing again because I wasn't happy with the coloring. So I think, well, I'm just going to cheat and I will color the part that I messed up and then I will fussy cut it and I'll just add it to the image and it will be totally fine. Now, the other thing that I'm doing a little bit differently right now is I'm doing a voiceover, and I was just filming. So my family was running around, the kids had just gotten home. It was Violet's birthday, so she was excited. It was our first rain, like real rain of the season. So the kids were excited, and I was literally just filming and kind of yelling up and down from the stairs into the kitchen, like different things and talking to them. And so that's a little bit different for me, but actually, I really liked the process because I just didn't feel rushed. I felt like, okay, I'm just interacting with my family and I'm fixing this and it's no big deal. And so it also gave me this ability to like stop and think about things for a minute. And you'll see at the end here, this does not work. I do not like the way it looks at all. It just looks like a mess, quite honestly. And I actually walked away after I did this. I actually just walked away and I came back the next morning and then you'll see what I did. But you can see now, if I really wanted to, I probably could figure out how to fix this kind of doing that same thing. But what happened is I just really didn't like the way I colored that sweater. It just did not look at all like I wanted it to look or like the vision I had in my head. Also, at this point, I realized my kids have taken my scissors because my scissors that I cut my foam with are gone. So I had to use a different pair of scissors, which annoyed me. Like, it was probably Andrew, quite honestly. He probably came down and grabbed scissors to make something. He's my crafty one. So the first layer that I did on here is just 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then the smoky slate color is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And then the mint macaroon pieces are 3 inches by 1 1/4. Now there's a little bit more space than I really had wanted, but at this point I'm like, it's totally fine. It will work. It is the design of the sketch that's giving me a really good place to jump off of. And I really like the way these layers look, like with the orange and then the smoky slate and the mint macaroon, like that layer. I really like that. So I did that flat. I did the orange piece popped up, and then I did the smoky slate layer flat because I was going to pop up the sweater. So right here, I'm like, this does not look anything like what I want it to look like. So I actually walked away and I came back the next morning. So now it's the next morning. I'm sorry about my camera shaking. It's going to shake a little bit until it calms down. And what I decided is to scrap the idea of using the sweater. I thought the sweater looked a certain way when I was thinking about the card. And when I looked at the stamp set and got the stamp out, it wasn't like what I thought in my head. And sometimes what happens is then it's like you can't get the card to look how you wanted it to. So I was like, let's just scrap using the sweater and let's use the typewriter. I really also liked the typewriter. So it didn't stamp perfectly up in that corner, but that's fine. I'm going to use the same color combo and my same blends, and I'm going to color this. Now, looking back, I should have, or I could have, maybe not should have, I could have used my colored pencils and it would have given me a better shading effect. The markers are really, they're really saturated. So even though that's my light smoky slate, it's pretty dark. And so it's fine. It ends up looking fine. But definitely after I was done making it, I was like, a colored pencil would have been better for the shading effect that I was going for. So here, this is before I realized like, well, the mint macaroon colors are not going to blend well. So right here, I'm adding the dark, and then my intention is going to be to go in with the light and to then have that color in certain places blend out. Now, if it's a really small area, I don't necessarily worry about blending. I just like the markers, the alcohol markers, because of the look that you get. I feel like they're very forgiving. And even if you're not great at like blending or coloring, um, you're able to get a really awesome look. So right here, that light mint macaroon you can see is much, much lighter. So instead of getting a real blended look like I did like with the gray, I'm noticing it's a little bit harder to get that color to move and blend. So it's fine because it's just a different look, right? It's not the maybe the perfect blended look, but it's just a different look. So I just went ahead and I went with it. And the thing with blends, like markers like this, alcohol markers, is you can continue to layer on the color. So that's all I did. I went to another spot and I colored a little bit more, and then I came back, and then I realized this is a really small image. This doesn't blend really, really well. So I'm not going to worry about blending it really well. I switched to the fine point, which helped a couple places. It helped that ink move a little bit more and gave me a little bit better look. I prefer the brush tips on these markers, but every once in a while that fine tip works a little bit better. So I added some gray here, and again, it feels a lot better than the sweater did. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with this image. And I know I'm going to put my sentiment kind of over the middle of that typewriter. So I recognize it doesn't have to be really perfect. So at this point, I'm like, I'm just going to go for it and make this work. So I fussy cut it. I did that same technique with a marker around the edges, but instead of using black, I used gray, which totally helped this particular image and the way I was coloring it. So probably if I had done that with the sweater, it probably would have turned out a little bit better. But that's okay, right? We live, we do stuff, we figure it out, we learn how to do it differently. So now I know to think about that outline before I dive in and do it, and not to just always use a black marker, which is what I've always done in the past. So I added some foam to this, and then I'm adding it to a square. So instead of a circle, I'm adding a square. I really wanted you to see that the sketch is a place for you to jump off of. It's a place for you to start to get an idea, but you don't have to follow it exactly. And that is also why I didn't provide any measurements on the sketch, because I really want you to be able to be creative and not be boxed in. So I added on the very bottom and then the top, I'm adding a little bit of shading. My shading got a little bit crazy in that top corner, so it's a little bit thicker than I would like, but I just went with it because I'm still fairly happy with this whole with the entire stamped image. Overall, I'm pretty happy. So I'm just using my liquid glue and I'm going to put that right in the middle. I did not pop that up because my image is popped up. And so I didn't want to make the card too thick. And I put that right in the middle there. The design's okay with the square. I definitely think it looks a little bit better with a circle, and I could have done a circle as well. So this is a brand new Wink of Stella, so it's nice and glittery, and I just came in and I added some of that to the major coloring and the major shading, of the typewriter here. And then I also added it to the bottom part of my shading. Since my shading got a little bit crazy up in that one corner, I just thought this would just add a little bit of sparkle, and it would be nice with the shading part. So the next thing is I need my sentiment and I need my jewels. So for the sentiment, I did cut one of the sentiments up so that it would be in a straight line instead of stacked. I left that out because I know that stamp surgery stresses some of you out. I know it's very hard to watch if you don't love the idea of cutting your stamps up. So I just left that out. I can put it back together and stamp it stacked if I want, but it came out fine in that line, and I just made that really skinny, and then I did little flags at each end, which turned out really great. I stamped that in smoky slate, and then I'm just adding some of these gems. Many of you that have followed me for a long period of time know this is what I always do. It just is it's what I like, I guess. I don't shake it up very much with my embellishments. So I just added 3 to each side, and then that was it. I didn't want them to look stacked like in a line. And then the very last thing that I'm going to do, I'm trying to do this more, is add a white piece of cardstock into the inside of my card. And then that way it's all ready to go and ready for me to use, because I'm terrible at getting cards in the mail. I struggle so much to take the time to actually use the cards that I'm making, and I want to change that. So by having everything ready, then they're ready to go. So I hope that you enjoyed this card, and I will catch you in my very next video. Thank you so much for checking out my video today. I hope you will like this video and subscribe to my channel. Here on the screen are 2 other videos that I have recently put together. I hope that you will check those out, and I hope you're having a wonderful day.